Welcome to the deep dive. Picture this. You've just staggered off the end of a relentless 12-hour night shift. You are running on, well, pure adrenaline fumes, and you catch yourself feeling dangerously drowsy.
That momentary lapse of focus, yeah.
Exactly, the kind that genuinely scares you. But before you can even think about clocking out, you're hit with a triple threat of dilemmas. The kind that really defines high-pressure medicine.
Okay.
First, you look back and realize you made a pretty significant prescribing error yesterday. You accidentally doubled the dose of a key medication.
Oh, that's a horrible feeling.
It is. And mercifully, the patient is currently stable, but the error, it still happened. Second, your registrar sees you packing up, corners you, and asks you to backdate a clinical note. Right now.
Oh, the classics.
You have to cover an omission and make the records look seamless for the consultant's ward round. So now you've got this immediate conflict. Your personal competence and safety is shot because of the fatigue. You've got a duty of candor about that error and a duty of absolute honesty about records, which is being challenged by hierarchy.
Right.
What do you do first? How do you even begin to untangle all of that?
That intense scenario is the very crucible of the situational judgment test, isn't it? It's where integrity, safety, and all those operational pressures just collide head-on.
Right.
And if we boil down the successful strategy for navigating these things, the core truth for the SJT is this. The exam rewards doctors who prioritize immediate patient safety, uphold absolute honesty, that's in both candor and records, and document clear, respectful escalation.
Over what, though?
Over everything else, over convenience, over hierarchy, or, over your own personal comfort.
That immediately gives us the framework for this deep dive. We're not talking about some abstract ethics class here.
No, not at all.
This is high-stakes, real-time decision-making, the kind that's constantly tested in the MSRA SJT.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this. Why are these specific pillars, honesty, competence, upholding standards, why are they so uniquely crucial? Why don't they just keep coming up in the exam?
Well, they matter because they're not just exam topics. They're the foundational covenant of being a doctor in the UK.
The absolute bedrock.
Exactly. Our sources confirm these integrity scenarios are consistently the highest frequency topics because they directly reflect the first 5 paragraphs of Good Medical Practice, 2024. These are the non-negotiables.
So things like making patient care your first concern, acting with honesty.
At all times, absolute honesty and integrity. If you violate one of those duties, every other aspect of your clinical work is, well, it's compromised. The exam knows this.
So the SJT is essentially testing our ethical and professional operating system.
That's a great way to put it.
It's making sure we can withstand the pressure when that system is challenged.
Precisely. And the scoring pattern in the exam relies so heavily on whether you choose the written GMC standard, the gold standard, over what we all experience as, local custom and practice.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Think about the pressures you face every day. The rush to discharge patients to hit bed metrics, the unspoken rule of maybe covering for a colleague, or just that expectation to get on with it when you're completely exhausted.
Right.
The test is assessing whether you'll breach those absolute standards for the sake of, say, team harmony or speed, or just because a senior told you to.
And what are the most common traps that catch junior doctors out in this specific area? Because let's be honest, sometimes the right professional choice feels like the hardest interpersonal choice to make.
That's exactly where the traps lie. They hinge on 3 key behaviors: concealment, delay, and deflection.
Okay, break those down.
Concealing an error, delaying escalation when you know you're unsafe or when you spot a red flag, or deflecting blame or responsibility. All of these score incredibly poorly because they violate those foundational GMC duties.
So you're sacrificing your duty to the patient.
Yes, for convenience or for self-preservation. When in doubt, the action that promotes the greatest transparency and the most immediate safety is almost always the correct answer.
Okay, let's dive into those core principles, because the level of detail that GMC expects is the difference between a high score and a low one. We need to know the precise expectation.
We can organize them into 4 pillars that cover the entire professional landscape we're talking about.
Let's start with the one that affects the patient most directly,
Wow.
Patient safety and candor. This links right back to the prescribing error in our opening scenario.
The GMC expects 2 things at the same time. First, make patient care your primary concern. Obvious, but critical. Second, practice the duty of candor. This is covered in GMP 2024, paragraphs 23 and 55 to 56.
And that means being open and honest when things go wrong.
Yes, even if the harm is minimal or just perceived, and critically, even if the patient hasn't noticed the error yet. The duty is to disclose, not to wait until the patient asks.
So let's be clear. If that patient is currently asymptomatic after that dose error, we still have to disclose immediately.
Absolutely. The duty is prompt disclosure. You have to acknowledge the error, apologize sincerely, explain what happened and what the likely effects are, and then document what you've told the patient.
Now, here's a crucial insight for UK practice. I've heard that apologizing can be seen as an admission of liability.
That's a really common fear, but the sources emphasize that saying "I'm sorry" or expressing regret is a professional expectation. But under the UK Compensation Act, that apology is not an admission of legal liability.
That distinction is vital for doctors to understand, isn't it?
It's huge. It means you can fulfill your professional duty without automatically conceding a legal battle. You never, ever conceal or delay disclosure. That's a professional catastrophe.
That clarity is extremely reassuring. It lets you focus on the human and professional side of the apology. And that leads us directly to the second pillar, which is about integrity under duress, honesty, and records.
Right, the registrar asking you to backdate that note, a direct test of this.
So what's the standard here?
It's about absolute truthfulness. Falsifying records, backdating, overwriting, altering original entries. It doesn't just look bad. It breaches honesty, it undermines the entire governance system, and it carries profound legal and fitness to practice risk.
The sources are rigid on this, I take it.
Completely rigid. If you spot an error or an omission in a document, you must correct it via a dated and timed addendum. The original historical record has to remain intact, and the correction has to be transparently linked to when it was actually made.
The distinction between an edit and an addendum is enormous for governance, isn't it? An edit suggests that, a revision. An addendum suggests transparency.
Exactly. An addendum preserves the historical truth. It shows exactly when the correction was recognized and implemented. An alteration or backdating destroys that integrity.
And in the SJT?
In the SJT, colluding with a senior to falsify records is an instant low-scoring action, regardless of how minor the omission might seem. You just cannot be complicit in professional dishonesty, no matter who is asking.
Our third pillar, then. This addresses the personal safety element from our opening dilemma, competence and fitness. This covers working while impaired, like being dangerously drowsy or working beyond your skill level.
The GMC standard is unambiguous here. You must recognize your limits, work within your demonstrated competence, and never practice if your judgment or performance is compromised.
And that applies to more than just fatigue, right?
Oh, absolutely. It applies equally to overwhelming drowsiness, a viral illness that's impairing your concentration, or, say, being asked to perform a complex procedure like a chest drain when you've only ever practiced on a simulation mannequin.
So what's the duty there?
You have a proactive duty to secure safe cover, to step back if you were unsafe, and if you feel compelled to work, your very first action must be to ensure the safety of your patients is not compromised by your state.
Finally, we hit the, let's call it the political and relational pillar, upholding standards over hierarchy. This is where the service pressure often gets applied most aggressively.
This is perhaps the most difficult area for junior doctors because it pits professional standards against team loyalty or, the fear of challenging a senior.
But the rule is?
The rule is absolute. GMC guidance overrides any unsafe or dishonest instructions from seniors. It overrides conflicting local policies or operational pressures.
So if a senior asks you to breach a standard backdate a note, discharge an unstable patient, do something you're not competent in, what do?
You must respectfully decline, cite the professional guidance you are following, and escalate formally. These standards are your protection, but only if you use them.
So we know what the GMC expects. We've got the 4 pillars. Now let's explore the rationale. Why do these actions, which often feel hard or awkward in the moment, like challenging a registrar, why do they constitute the safest course of action and score highest in the SJT?
It fundamentally comes down to trust and accountability and a functioning system of governance. Take Candour, for example. Why the speed and sincerity?
I assume it's about trust.
Exactly, because an early, sincere apology preserves trust. Delays in disclosure just breed suspicion and anger. The faster you are open, the quicker you can implement systems to prevent it happening again.
And what about escalation? We touched on the fear of snitching earlier. Why is proper escalation actually essential for risk management?
Escalation is immediate risk stabilization. By seeking senior oversight, whether that's challenging a senior respectfully or just calling the on-call consultant, you stabilize the risk fast.
And you create a record of it.
Crucially, you create an essential auditable trail. The GMC states you must raise concerns and take prompt action for safety. This protects the patient from immediate harm, and it protects you professionally because you've shown you followed guidance and saw support.
And finally, documentation. That weaves through every single pillar. Why is clear recording of not just clinical facts, but also these professional dilemmas so vital?
Documentation is how you evidence your adherence to the GMC standards. We use formats like owner deadline threshold or ODT to ensure clarity.
Okay, what's ODT?
It's who owns the action, when must it be done, and what is the threshold for escalating if it fails. Clear recording of facts, advice you received, and plans you've made creates accountability and supports system learning.
So when you file an incident report, you're not just covering yourself.
No, not at all. When you file an incident report through the Learning from Patient Safety Events System-LFPSC or respond via the Patient Safety Incident Response Framework PSIRF, you are not assigning blame.
You're contributing to the system.
You are contributing to governance, making sure the system learns from the near miss or the error. Clear documentation is the physical evidence that you acted as a safe, honest doctor.
That background on LFPSC and PSIRF is really vital context. It shifts incident reporting from being a punitive task to an essential contribution.
It does.
Okay, that provides a robust foundation. Now let's translate these principles into practical steps. If a listener is faced with any professionalism dilemma, an error, fatigue, an unsafe instruction, what is the integrated 5-step framework they should apply?
We need a clear, reliable action path that covers the full arc. Intervention, escalation, resolution, and then the follow-up.
Let's apply this new framework, let's call it the integrity intervention pathway, directly to our opening hook dilemma. The fatigue, the prescribing error, and the registrar asking for backdating.
Absolutely. So the first step, step 1, is identify duty and assess risk. You have to determine the relevant GMC duty immediately.
In our scenario, that's safety, honesty, and candor.
Exactly. And the crucial self-check is, am I safe and competent to proceed now? Given the dangerous drowsiness and the error, the answer is a resounding no.
Which means we stop.
We stop and stabilize the immediate risk.
Which moves us immediately to step 2. Decline breach, stabilize. How do we stabilize all 3 of those risks at the same time?
Okay, first, you address the dishonesty pressure. You refuse the unsafe or dishonest task. The backdating request. You have to use that model phrase. I can't backdate this entry. It wouldn't be accurate or meet GMC standards. I will document this accurately as a contemporaneous addendum.
Okay, 1 down. What about the impairment?
Second, you address your own impairment. You stop, you declare your fatigue to a colleague or the rota coordinator immediately, and you arrange competent cover.
And the error.
Third, you address the prescribing error by ensuring the patient is clinically stable right now. But you defer the formal candor discussion until you have senior support and you're lucid enough to discuss it clearly.
Okay, we've stabilized the immediate integrity and physical risk. Now we communicate.
That's step 3, escalate and inform. This is twofold in our scenario. You inform the relevant senior, the registrar, the rota coordinator, that you're unfit to continue due to fatigue and you require cover.
And what if the registrar pushes back on the backdating refusal?
You must escalate their resistance further up the management chain, maybe to the consultant or clinical lead. And you also must prepare to inform the patient about the prescribing error, ensuring you have senior support present for that disclosure. Specify urgency in all your communications.
Then we fix the system or the gap.
Step 4 is implement safe alternative. You arrange competent cover for the rest of your shift. You ensure the prescribing error is corrected and the patient's monitoring is increased. And for record keeping, the alternative is that dated and timed addendum.
And finally, closing the loop. This addresses the system learning.
Step 5 is document and plan learning. This is absolutely essential for accountability. You record the facts of the fatigue incident, the advice you got from the rota coordinator, your refusal to backdate, and all the actions you took, clearly and contemporaneously.
And for yourself.
You must log learning needs in your personal development plan, maybe around fatigue mitigation. And crucially, the prescribing error has to be logged as an incident report via LFPSC to support system-wide learning.
That 5-step framework, identify, decline, stabilize, escalate, implement, document, is incredibly powerful. It turns a stressful, multi-layered problem into a structured process.
It provides clarity under pressure. If you can remember that structure, you will hit the highest scoring actions every time because you're satisfying all your professional duties at once.
Now, let's make these sticky. The sources are rich in memorable mnemonics. We need to introduce them as useful tools, not just lists.
Mnemonics are invaluable because the SJT is so time-pressured, we have several high-yield memory aids for these interconnected topics.
Let's start with STAND for upholding standards. How does that work?
STAND reminds you of the core professional hierarchy. S is for standards first GMC over local custom. T is for tell the truth or decline the breach. A is for act for safety. N is notify seniors escalate promptly. And D is for document.
So that mnemonic basically ensures the GMC standard is your unwavering compass.
Even if it causes momentary friction with your team, yes.
And for honesty and candor, the duty to disclose errors, we use OASIS.
OASIS helps structure that potentially difficult conversation. Open disclosure, promptly, apologize sincerely, senior support, involve them immediately, inform next steps, and safeguard by documenting. It guides you right through the process.
For competence and self-awareness, especially when fatigue or skill gaps pop up, we have AWARE.
AWARE forces that critical internal check. Assess limits, honestly. Warn or escalate early before harm occurs. Ask for help, refer or redirect. And educate or reflect your CPD plan. It reminds you to never bluff.
And we also briefly touched on managing the personal risk of impairment with rests.
Yes, rest is specific for fatigue and impairment. Recognize impairment. Escalate immediately. Switch to cover. Transfer care with a concise SBR handover. And secure record and support log it via LFPSC and seek occupational health help.
It's the safe exit strategy from clinical work when you're compromised.
Exactly that.
That is a highly functional set of tools. Now, to anchor these concepts visually, the source suggests a powerful image.
Yes, imagine a GMC shield protecting a patient. Whenever you face a dilemma involving integrity, honesty, or safety, you always choose the action that aligns with the protection of that shield.
So the GMC guidance is there to protect the patient from, from convenience, hierarchy, or exhaustion.
Your professional identity is defined by upholding that shield, regardless of who is asking you to lower it.
That visual makes the hierarchy crystal clear. The patient, protected by the standards, always comes first, not the registrar's convenience, the ward's metrics, or your desire to avoid a fight.
Precisely. It simplifies all those complex relational dynamics.
Moving on, let's look at the patterns. The SJT relies on a finite set of core scenarios to test these pillars. If we can recognize the pattern, we immediately know the high-scoring action. What are the 4 most common integrity patterns?
We should definitely spend some time detailing these, as they're so central to the exam experience.
Let's start with pattern 1, the dishonesty pressure. This is the scenario of being asked to lie or cover something up.
The test here is profound. Will you collude with falsification or delay candor to protect yourself, a senior, or the service reputation? A classic example is the registrar asking you to backdate, or a colleague asking you to say they were there for a procedure when they weren't.
So the best action is what we established earlier.
Yes. Decline the dishonest request, state clearly that it breaches GMC standards, document the true facts as a contemporaneous addendum, and escalate respectfully if the pressure continues.
We should give a model phrase here because communication is so key.
A high-scoring response uses professional language and clear boundaries. Something like, I can't backdate this entry as it wouldn't be an accurate representation of the care timeline, and that conflicts with GMC guidance on records. What I will do is document an accurate, dated addendum.
And what are the tempting actions that lose marks?
Keeping silent, tweaking the wording to make an omission look intentional, or worst of all, just backdating to maintain team harmony. Any dishonesty erodes professional trust. It's a huge integrity red flag.
Okay, pattern 2 is the ubiquitous safety versus service clash, the operational pressure test.
This tests whether you prioritize immediate patient safety over operational pressure bed metrics, rota gaps, the pressure of a full waiting room. The scenario might be being pressured to discharge a patient with unclear post-op obs, or being forced to cover 2 wards when you know you can't do it safely.
What is the best action when faced with that kind of collision?
You must intervene to protect safety. If it's an unsafe discharge, you refuse the unsafe discharge politely but firmly, citing clinical facts and GMC safety duties.
And then you escalate.
You escalate immediately to the consultant, clinical lead, or site manager, and document the rationale for keeping the patient. If the risk is you fatigue or impairment, you declare it, request cover immediately using rests, and hand over safely via SBR.
So no powering through.
Never. You never power through wait and see or compromise safety by, say, agreeing to discharge a frail patient just because the consultant is busy. That's just delegating risk, which is unsafe.
Pattern 3 addresses the blurred boundary or conflict of interest. These are often subtle, right? They can hinge on perception more than intention.
Exactly. The exam tests if you recognize and manage perceived bias, whether from high-value gifts, inappropriate social media contact, or financial interests. It's not just about stopping actual corruption. It's about avoiding the appearance of it.
So how do we manage this without causing offense to, say, a grateful patient or family?
The best action uses polite refusal with professional clarity. You politely decline high-value gifts or social invitations, explaining that professional guidance prevents accepting anything that could be seen to influence clinical judgment.
And you redirect them.
You redirect personal contact to official auditable channels like the clinic line or PALS. If a conflict of interest exists, say a family member works for a service you might refer to, you must declare it, step back from the decision, and offer the patient a balanced choice of options.
So the tempting actions here, accepting a gift to avoid offense, using WhatsApp for speed, or not declaring a conflict because you feel you can stay objective, they all score poorly.
They do because they undermine professional trust and governance. The appearance of bias is enough to require immediate proactive management.
It's a critical line to hold, isn't it?
It is. The relationship has to remain professional for the protection of both parties.
Finally, pattern 4, the competence gap. This links directly to that duty of self-awareness and continual professional development.
The test here is the doctor's internal honesty. Do you know your limits? Do you ask for help before harm occurs? And do you plan future learning to close the gap? We apply the AWARE or CPD SAFE framework here.
And the scenario is usually being asked to do something high risk that you're not signed off for.
Like a complex lumbar puncture or chest drain? Yes. Or assisting in a specialist area you haven't worked in for years.
So what's the recommended action if we are asked to perform that procedure unsupervised?
You must assess your limits honestly and immediately decline the unsupervised procedure respectfully. Your first priority is patient stabilization, your ABCDE, and urgently escalating to a competent clinician who can perform the task safely.
And then you need to follow up for your own development.
Crucially, yes, you must document the gap as a formal personal development plan, action-supervised practice, simulation training, to show you're proactively working to close that competence gap.
And the traps are obvious here.
The traps are attempting the procedure unsupervised, having a go, delaying escalation because of pride, or just failing to document the learning need afterwards. You violate the duty to work with incompetence, and that's why those actions score so poorly.
That detailed look at the 4 patterns makes the SJT strategy so clear. Recognize the pressure point, identify the GMC duty being tested, and choose the transparent, safe, and escalating response.
Absolutely. The key is understanding that the safe response often requires the most courage, and the SJT rewards that courage.
Okay, we've covered the principles and the patterns. Now let's drill down into why certain actions absolutely fail in the SJT. What are the specific trap answers that score poorly, and what's the detailed reasoning behind their failure?
We have to analyze the specific temptations that feel comfortable but are professionally dangerous. We can identify 7 common low-scoring actions across these integrity topics.
Let's take the first one, which is just the default human response to panic. Keep it quiet, wait and see before escalating.
This scores poorly because delay allows harm or risk to continue. Imagine delaying Candour about a minor error until the next ward round. That gives the patient time to potentially become symptomatic. Or waiting for fatigue to pass while you're still making minor cognitive errors.
You're breaching the duty of prompt action.
Exactly. The SJT punishes any delay in safety intervention very severely.
Next, the hierarchy test. Follow local practice hierarchy over GMC guidance.
This fails absolutely because local custom or departmental pressure never overrides good medical practice. If a local policy encourages an unsafe discharge time or a senior tells you to backdate a note, you must respectfully decline, cite the GMC guidance, and escalate formally. The GMC standard is the baseline.
Third, the core dishonesty trap. Blame others, tweak wording to look right. Deflection.
This scores poorly because dishonesty, deflection, cover-up, falsification erodes professional trust. And beyond that, falsification creates a significant medico-legal risk, not just for you, but for everyone involved in that patient's care.
Fourth, related to boundaries. Accept the high-value gift hospitality to avoid offense.
This fails because it risks perceived influence on clinical judgment. If you accept a lavish gift, it creates the perception that your future clinical choices might be compromised. You have to decline courteously and explain your professional standards.
You could suggest a donation instead, maybe.
Suggesting they direct their appreciation to the PIL service or a general charitable donation is a perfect way to handle it.
Fifth, Competence.
Hmm.
Proceed unsupervised. Have a quick go.
This violates the absolute duty to work within competence. The SJT views this as placing the patient at immediate, avoidable risk due to arrogance or false pride. The safe action is always to get a competent clinician, not to attempt it yourself when unqualified.
Sixth, the fatigue abandonment trap we see in night shift scenarios. Leave quietly to rest. Go for a drive to wake up.
These fail catastrophically. They either abandon patients without safe handover, a major red flag, or they risk public safety by driving while impaired.
And the safe action? Using rests.
It's always to escalate, arrange competent cover, and secure rest facilities on site, or arrange safe transport home after a proper handover.
Finally, the siloed approach to error investigation. Investigate secretly without escalation.
This fails because it lacks necessary senior support and oversight. You risk two things: inadequate management of the problem and, crucially, preventing immediate organizational learning. You must seek support. You are never expected to handle these complex governance issues alone.
That deep analysis of the trap answers makes the scoring logic crystal clear. If an action tries to hide something, delays intervention, compromises standards for convenience, or abandons responsibility, it's going to score poorly.
The golden rule remains: if it hides, delays, or dilutes GMC standards, it is the wrong professional move.
Time now for a rapid-fire drill to really cement these actions. If X happens, you must do Y.
Let's integrate those mnemonics into the response.
Okay, if you notice your visible ID is missing and a patient is clearly confused about who you are,
Make it visible immediately, apologize courteously, and introduce yourself by name and role. That's adhering to the standard of clear communication, the polite mnemonic in practice.
if your senior advises you to avoid disclosing an admin error that caused a 2-day delay to a vital cancer diagnosis test,
Follow GMC guidance, so that's OASIS. Be open with the patient, explain what happened, apologize for the delay, and escalate the senior's resistance further up the management chain immediately.
if you are dangerously drowsy during a night shift and realize you are making repeat prescribing errors,
Inform the duty registrar or site manager immediately. Declare yourself unfit for duty, that's rests request cover, and give a concise SBR handover of urgent tasks.
if you are asked to insert a high-risk central line and you've only done simulation and have no live competent supervision available,
Decline the unsupervised procedure, stabilize the patient with ABCDE, escalate urgently to a competent clinician, and document a PDP action to close that skill gap, that's aware in action.
if you catch a near-miss prescribing error due to your fatigue, but no harm occurred,
File an incident report LFPSC immediately, document it neutrally, and seek occupational health or practitioner health support for your impairment.
and one final one, if you realize a patient's relative who works for a private care home chain is giving you expensive gifts every time you refer a patient to their facility,
Declare the potential conflict of interest to your senior, stop accepting the gifts immediately, and review your referral patterns to ensure you're offering all patients a balanced choice of care providers.
that is fantastic synthesis. We've covered a massive amount of guidance here, all linked by that central concept of integrity. Before we close, what are the absolute 3 key takeaways you want everyone to walk away with?
These 3 points really summarize the high-scoring mindset for all these dilemmas. First and foremost, GMC standards outrank all else. Always choose immediate patient safety, absolute honesty, and verified competence over hierarchy, convenience, or local customs. That GMC shield is your compass. Integrity means transparency, always. Be honest in your records using dated, timed addenda only, never backdating. Disclose errors promptly, even if no harm occurred. And declare conflicts of interest immediately, even if the conflict is only perceived.
And the final piece of the puzzle, crucial for both risk management and for scoring well.
Intervene early, escalate formally, and document everything. Intervene immediately to stabilize risk, secure appropriate cover or supervision, and ensure every single action, concern, and learning gap is clearly documented in the patient record and the governance system. This is how you demonstrate professional accountability.
That's a powerful and detailed summary of how to master integrity scenarios in the SJT. The best performance, it seems, comes not from rote memorization, but from embodying the principles of a safe, honest doctor who knows when and how to ask for help.
A doctor who maintains that GMC shield at all costs.
If you want more high-yield SJT frameworks and practice scenarios tailored to these core standards, you can find them over at passthemsra.com. Keep learning and keep those professional standards high.